Well, hopefully you can all see us online. It's a very unusual experience for me doing a webinar at 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. I've been doing webinars since 2008, and this is the very first time I've ever done a webinar on the weekend. However, it's quite interesting because a lot of people have been asking for it on the weekend, and equally, we've had a lot of feedback from others that it really is a popular thing to do it on the weekend. So here we are. So I wanted to welcome tonight. Willem is online, or what's it, this afternoon. Kevin and Willie are also online, and I know Michael is also joining in terms of one of Willem's business colleagues. So welcome to all of you guys that are online today. Going to have lots of fun. We haven't used the sequence before, and we haven't used this time before.
Thanks, Scott. Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And just in keeping with the theme, because it's Sunday afternoon, I'm sitting here with a glass of wine because I'm about to go have some lamb shank after this. So cheers to everyone.
So that's what happens to a corporate employee that goes on their own, and within their first month, Sundays are like Mondays. It doesn't make any difference,
Yeah, that's exactly right. New ways, forging new ways.
So Michael, great to have you online. I know that we saw you in Joburg briefly, and for the people in Durban and Cape Town, they didn't obviously see you, and so we can see you online. Michael, just do us a bit of a favor. I think most people that are online know who everyone else is, in terms of all of us just explaining, but just give a little bit of background of who you are and what your relationship is with Willem, just so that people understand the connection.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Scott, and hello to everyone. So my name's Michael Stanley, and I'm the Managing Director of Paper Plan Advisory and Ventures. And we are basically an advisory business on technology, and we kind of take an agnostic stance to provide kind of assured advice when adopting technology, and in particular disruptive and exponential technologies. We've worked with Willem on various projects for a while. He's also a friend, and now, as he's left Deloitte, we're now open to work together on even more things. And so that's where the kind of the future of that connection and partnership is going, and very excited about that.
Excellent. So guys, just before we get into the details of how the day works, we are doing a full-on experimentation. So anyone who's online, welcome to a beta test, because this is how exponentials work. It's about failing forward and testing. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. We're very much testing. And so there's two things that we're testing today. One is obviously on a Sunday afternoon, and people's availability and whether they think it's a good idea or a bad idea. So I will run a poll a little bit later. I know it's obviously very biased, because anyone on the Sunday afternoon presentation thinks that that's a good time to have a webinar, versus the people that think it should be Tuesday evening. And then secondly, what we're going to try today from a questions perspective is that we don't want to put the questions in the chat box unless you really, really want to put them in the chat box. What we're going to actually ask you to do is we've created a Facebook page, not a whole page. Sorry, I'm from Knysna. We're reading around our fires and why we've got fires. But anyway, so we've got this page here, or this post, and you can see exponential technology. So you just go to the Wild Migrate page, and it's exponential technology and real estate fireside chat. Join us below and share with your friends. This is the webinar live. Any questions are posted here. So what I'm hoping to do is that if we go into the comments section here, this is where we can actually put in the questions. And the only reason I want to do that is it's a little bit more interactive. And then also, if we've got websites or things that we think are valuable, and this is to all of us who are online, then we can actually just post it there, and it's quite nice because people can go back and get it afterwards, etc. So it's a bit more interactive than the closed cell of a go-to meeting, if that's fair. So I wanted to get started this morning. Sorry, I don't know what time zone I'm in actually. I've been up for the last 3 or 4 days, had some really late nights. As you all know, I'm from Knysna, and let's just say it's been a very interesting week. So we didn't get a lot of sleep on Wednesday evening. So if I keep telling you it's morning or evening or afternoon, it's because I actually have no idea what time zone I'm in or what hour of the day it is. But I wanted to get started. There was a lot of conversation through the events around exponentials and the impact of exponentials. And, you know, Michael's joined us. I think one of the things that's most important, not only for South Africa, but globally, is the impact on our children. And I thought this was pretty pertinent. So other than the front page of the Sunday Times today, talking all about how Knysna has been burning in a blaze. And by the way, Willem, I don't know, we were talking about Plet Park and how nice it is as a hotel in Plet.
Was.
No, it no longer exists. I'm sure the owner is actually quite happy because I know it was up for sale and he probably wasn't going to get 65 million rand, so he's probably very chuffed with it. But anyway, that's a separate conversation. But this article was actually in the Sunday Times just this morning, and I read it and I thought it was pretty pertinent to this conversation. So the headline here is "Time to think differently about your jobs. For many youths, crime pays far better than work." And it says, when you look at crime statistics, they tell you that out of 800,000 instances of criminal activity that occur in South Africa, 400,000 cases are reported. Out of the reported cases, 70,000 are prosecuted with a total conviction of 20,000. So only 2% of criminals pay for their crimes. It's better you've got a 98% chance of not being convicted, and therefore it's better chance of doing crime than actually going to the education system. We are now the highest level of unemployment since 2009 with 8 million unemployed people when you add those who have given up seeking employment. In this fact, 33% of the unemployed have only a matric certificate in their possession. Graduates, on the other hand, have only 7% unemployment rate. Sorry, I'm only using the bits that are highlighted. I'm not trying to read your whole article. Apparently, this outcome is, so basically what they're looking at through the whole thing is that basically people no longer have a real interest. So boys say they don't see the point of education, and girls say they'd rather cater for the family responsibilities. Apparently this outcome is consistent in every survey, clearly proving that our youth, the very people receiving the education, do not trust or value it. The problem is that far too many students get access to higher education. Sorry, far too few students get higher education, and many of those who do end up with skills that are not matched to the opportunities available. And I thought it was a pretty good interlude into a discussion around where is the future of technology going, and what do the children need, and how do we solve that problem? Because, you know, my son is 5, and quite frankly, learning geography, I don't really understand it when he's got AccuWeather. No disrespect to the Afrikaans people online, but it's not a language of the global entrepreneurship community, so I don't see the point of him learning that, you know, et cetera, versus the skills that I do believe are really important. And equally, these exponential technologies and understanding them are absolutely, you know, phenomenally important. So let's get into a little bit of a debate around that. And if people want to post their questions and or their thoughts and or any links, let's use the Facebook page. If you don't know how to use the Facebook page, you can use the chat site. But I'd like to hand over to the panel to start off with. What are your thoughts on education, where it's going, and the impact of technology in our children's lives? Because there's one thing that's guaranteed: it's going to have a massive impact.
Scott, so I'll kick it off if you don't mind. So Stan and I, and just for all the viewers, Michael Stannard has got a nickname, and it's Stan. So if you hear us talking about Stan, it's not a 5th person or a 6th person that didn't join us. It's actually Michael. So Stan and I are also involved in a business venture that deals with CPD, so continuous professional development, specifically for chartered accountants. And I spent the morning with the other directors that are busy creating the content to help just CAs in the space of exponential tech and what's going to happen. And suffice to say that what we thought was going to be a 1.5 hour long endeavor turned out to be something that we did from 11 o'clock this morning, and I was almost late for this webinar because we weren't finished by the time that I'd left. Now that is a very niche part of application, and we only dealt with 2 technologies, which was cryptocurrencies and the other one being blockchain. There are still 14 other exponential technologies that have fundamental impact on broader based business landscape, as opposed to just, you know, the space in which CAs are involved. And so my first thing to share, I suppose, just this afternoon is that, you know, I've almost become a bit blasé around exponential technology and the effect that it will have commercially on businesses. I was just reawakened to the depth at which this impact will be felt across the globe by virtue of dealing with tax, audit, management, accounting, and through the course of this morning's endeavors with these other professionals. So that's my first thing. This is not to be underestimated, the depth of the impact. The second point that I thought I'd make is that we face a systemic issue in South Africa and in the world as regards the slow pace with which education has evolved, whilst the business environment around us and the life environment around us has undergone change, primarily by virtue of the exponential technologies that are now impacting it, to the extent that we're still sitting with institutions that insist on accreditation of content before rolling it out to individuals that can learn it and use it, apply it, find application space for it. And the issue, I've no issue with accredited content per se, save the process of accrediting content taking so long that it's precluding a lot of this data and content filtering into formal education processes, the consequence of which is that by the time that the content does make it through the accreditation process and is rolled out to users, it's already outdated. And so what this begs is an alternative method of delivery and perhaps an alternative source for consideration for some of this content to be able to make sure that we arm people with the information to become aware. And then, of course, the second step being that after being aware, evolving that understanding of the content such that you're able to apply it in in your life, in business, in making up a new business, in entrepreneurship, or in your current job even, for that matter. So we've got a bit of a systemic issue here, which is why we started looking at doing what we're doing today, which is engaging our...
Sorry, what about just jumping in there and for the purpose of conversation, I want to kind of challenge that even. I think it's even broader than that, because unfortunately at school we taught not to fail, and actually yet when one's dealing with well, where the whole world's going, it's actually a case of testing, failing, and failing forward, if that makes sense. So it's you talk about a systemic issue, like there's a fundamental mindset shift that needs to take place as well.
Absolutely. Spot on, Scott. It's chicken egg. Do you change the content to change mindsets first, or do you change mindsets to change the content first? We don't know. So what Stan and I have said up until this point is we're not going to wait for broader society to do something about this. We're going to be active digital citizens, and we're going to put together an endeavor that will start the process. We don't know if we're doing it in the right way, but we do know one thing, and that is that doing nothing is going to get nothing done. So we're doing something.
Okay. Sorry. Stan, was that you?
No. Yeah, I guess if I can add to what Willem has said, I mean, spot on everything that Willem has said, and I feel very strongly personally about this. I mentioned to the guys when I spoke in Joburg that I'm writing a book about this. I'm writing a book to myself at age 17. It's basically addressed to myself saying, you just think a little bit differently about how you're going to attack this next period in your life, being university and finding a job. And I mean, I'm sure that many people will get good advice from their parents, but in the event that they don't get good advice from their parents for whatever the reason may be, there needs to kind of be sources of knowledge transfer where you're essentially making really big decisions. You're not that well equipped, and you don't know what you don't know. So you need some way of finding that out. And yeah, so Willem and I are trying to create these sessions whereby we can kind of impart some of that knowledge. And basically the road that's going down. So Scott, I fully take on your points about the cultural mindset shift in terms of failing and that type of thing. I don't think that we've adequately looked at that in terms of the psyche. But what we have looked at, because it's something that we've gone quite a lot of knowledge around, is this use of exponential technologies and how those are going to change the world going forward. And basically, if you're aware of those changes, you can try and kind of, as my partner Stuart always says, he says skate towards the puck. In other words, you anticipate what's going to happen and kind of plan as a result. So, I mean, a great and easy example when speaking to a youngster would be to say, You know, a lot of parents put pressure on their kids to become professionals, right? To be CAs and doctors, etc. So if you're being pushed towards being a doctor, I mean, a fine profession, but you want to know that you want to stay clear of radiology, for example, because radiology is already being taken care of by AI. So you shouldn't be studying that. And I mean, I'm not sure what steps the universities are taking currently to say, cool guys, you know, we don't need someone to read these images anymore because the computer does it better. But it's very important to know those types of things. And wherever we can kind of say the red flags of, like, you know, these industries won't exist in a little while, these industries will exist, why don't you kind of look at those and find your passion within those? We think those are vital messages to get across, and that's what we're going to try and do.
Michael and Willem, I just have a question for the two of you. I know the way you're attacking this is looking at the actual parents and children. I know getting into traditional schools is quite difficult because, you know, your traditional guidance counselor is going to say, what the hell are you talking about? But don't you think that that is something that's extremely vital, that, you know, your guidance counselor or whatever they call these days, you know, your LO or whatever that subject is that kids are doing, you know, is saying, you know, traditional, this is what's happening, and saying, okay, well, you know, you're really hands-on, you should be a technician type person, i.e. a radiologist, or, you know, a pharmacist assistant, or you know, all those jobs are going to disappear. I mean, you know, either machines or AI can take them on. So is that something you guys have looked at and thought about?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Kevin. First things first, regulation always lags the evolution of technology. So reg catches up, and by virtue of the same token, so do formal structures. So what Stan and I have said is, listen, there's definitely a place to speak to progressive LOs, you know, PTAs, school bodies, school group ownership structures. And we think that we definitely will find some traction in helping, at least at some point, stimulate the conversation and perhaps even delivering some of the content. But because we know that formal infrastructure lags, we're not waiting. So what we said is, well, why don't we go directly to consumer? We think that parents have a vested interest in the development of their children's body of knowledge and their exposures. And so failing a formal plan as to how to go about an education business, which is not actually either of ours core competency, we said, let's start with the directly influenced individuals, which are the school kids, in conjunction with their families, which are the parents, and we say, right, here's a course. We know that in the corporate space, there are some applications that we could probably cross-pollinate. But one of the things that we want to get out of today, as an example, if you don't mind my hijacking this a little bit, is to say, help us help you, because we have access to near 60 faculty members that have typically gone and, you know, developed content and delivery for corporates. But overwhelmingly, we've had parents say to us, bring something of this nature to our kids. Okay, now we don't have a ready to roll out kids program. We know that the content is relevant to them. We know that we need to repackage that content. So, you know, if it's younger children that we'll talk about, that we'll engage with, we're not going to talk about ROIs and IRRs. We're going to talk about how to make more money or be, you know, successful at business. So the language gets changed a little bit, and we've got a pretty good idea of what technology to include in the course material. But at some stage, you know, we can't tell you what you want as an audience. We're hoping to engage you through a forum like this to say, tell us what you think, having heard some of the exponential content, what you think is important, and perhaps how to structure it. So we know that we can't do a 5-hour session on robotics with a group of children. We're going to probably have to do it in a 30-minute interval. So there's the format through which we do it, the content that we stick in there, and then, of course, things that, because neither Stan nor I have children yet, you know, when is the best time of the year to do this? Is it in the holiday? Does that compete with going away as a family? Is it during school time? Does that compete with the course curriculum of the school, perhaps even of the infrastructure of the school? We don't want to piss schools off, but we also know that kids need to hear these things. What's the middle way? Give us some guidance. We've got the content, we've got the appetite, we've got the enthusiasm. If we don't get this right, then something else is wrong.
Okay. So a question And there's some questions coming up, so I think we're just going to jump around as the questions come up. But in terms of what you're thinking for both yourself, Stan, and Willem, and I'd love people to jump in here and let them know what you're thinking. But is it an ongoing process where people or children turn up for one day, or is it more of like a camp where they come away for a week, or is it something where it's I don't know, a couple of hours for and over a number of weeks? What are you guys thinking? Just by the way, I'm just playing around and doing Google searches, and if I find interesting stuff, I'm putting it up while we're talking as well. You can probably see my screen. There's a whole really interesting thing here.
A little distracting, but
okay. I won't do it then.
Oh, just stop sharing your screen and keep doing it.
Cool. So what are you guys thinking around the event in general, or in terms of the training? How will it actually work?
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. Additionally, Willem and I have spoken about just having a day. We haven't spoken about anything longer than that, and we are obviously very cognizant of the audience and the fact that people lose attention quickly. I mean, adults do as well, let alone kids. So we're thinking of structuring it as a day. That'll kind of be broken up between, I suppose, some of the academic aspects of it, where someone's talking to you, but also with a lot of tangible, practical stuff. So the kind of stuff we threw around was to, can you build a robot using Lego, or can you build a drone? We have access to the Drone Racing Africa guys who help you build a drone during the session. So there'll be a lot of kind of practical and academic, and kind of mix that up to try and basically move as much knowledge across as possible. I know it's always a challenge, but yeah, we'll try and mix it up in a day format so that as much of that message goes across. And I suppose really what you're trying to do in the day is not actually, you're not going to teach anyone how to do, build a new AI, for example. But what you will do, hopefully, is try and stimulate passion within at least one of the verticals that you're going into. So, if during the course of what we say, we can inspire passion in video analysis on drone cameras, which will be a massive future industry, and some kid gets excited about that and then goes and reads up about it themselves, that's winning. Then we've won. So it'll be very much focused with that kind of that psychological goal in mind. Willem, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. Absolutely. What we thought to do, also as a starting point, is to say, right, we can't endeavor to have a meaningful product by having only a blank canvas. So we've got a broad-based structure. And what we thought was, not everyone is reading about all the different types of exponential technologies. And so perhaps just to start at some point, draw a line in the sand and get going, what we thought we'd do is say, right, let's do a 101 project. And like Michael said, let it be a day. So imagine a day where you show up to a venue where we have an hour and a half of intro on exponentials as a whole, introducing some of the broad-based concepts. No detail, just the broad-based. Then we've picked a number of certain technologies. So we know, for instance, as Stan had said, that drones, it's a massive, massive industry, and it will be a multi-billion-dollar industry, within the next 3 years, offering a variety of new types of jobs and exposure. So why don't we have our drone expert come in and talk about drones, showcase them, have individuals perhaps either build and or fly the drone to be able to get a hands-on experience, because we understand that for younger people, an experiential experience is worth more than perhaps just an academic content dump. And as Stan had said, to open up the awareness and perhaps even the interest and the passion that comes subsequent to that. So imagine that you have a half an hour worth of illustration and experience around drones, and perhaps another half an hour in terms of building it or playing with it or flying it, whatever the case may be. A little bit of a break, and perhaps forming little groups that have tasks within the drone industry, and then to come back into venue and say, right, now let's deal with robotics. Showcase some of where robotics are currently at, and have an entrepreneur that's busy running a successful business inside of that industry. Bring along some robots so that kids can play and assemble and understand and engage and perhaps think up some new ideas. Take a break. Get into 3D printing. Take a break. Get back into artificial intelligence. Take a break. Do some transactions on the blockchain and trade some bitcoins. Take a break. And so throughout the course of the day, have short, meaningful, intense experiences around some of these exponential texts, which we know not all schools are doing, and which we know no school is currently doing comprehensively. So there are some robotics projects, and there are some AI projects, and there are some machine learning projects, but no one's taking a comprehensive view of all the exponential technologies and stimulating exposure on a broad-based level in a meaningful, cost-effective, one-day type of experience. That's what we're hoping to build. I think we could almost say that that is sort of the broad-based design of the product, and we would love to take some guidance and some inputs as to what people think of that. Do we need to rethink the entire thing, or can we press play? If we do press play, when do we press play? Incidentally, we're thinking it has to happen June, July.
Roger has said do a test session with different age groups. And Kate Daly's also said, what is the age group of children you would be targeting? I have a 6-year-old daughter I would love to attend. I would need to attend with her, though. Would that be okay? You know, I must admit, I feel very strongly, you know, when I did the Lemonade Day training, which is all the entrepreneurship training with my son, and he started literally when he was 2.5. And, you know, it is a challenge. I mean, if you've got a 5 or 6-year-old in the room and a 16-year-old, it's a very different experience. So, you know, what are your thoughts around age groups and well, yeah, in terms of that testing environment?
Well, Michael and I initially thought that probably in terms of choosing a university course and in terms of choosing subjects that might then thereafter enable university course selection, those would be our initial target market. So that means anyone from sort of the traditional standard 6, which I know there's a new name for, it's grade 8. What is it? Help me. Yeah. So,
right,
you know, 14 to 17, 14 to 16 sort of age group.
Yeah, yes. Well, also, in fact, up until 18, right? Because if you finish high school at the age of 18, you're bound to go into a university protocol next. I know I speak disruption, but a lot of people would like to hedge their bets. So as to say, yes, get involved in the exponential world, but also can't now not go without the degree. Okay, there are differing views around that, but to accommodate both, we're saying it's not just for people that do subject selection, but also for people that do course collection. Because as Michael had said, you know, if you're thinking of becoming a radiologist, 7 years MBCHB plus specialization into a specific discipline that is already taken over by AI, that could be a fatal flaw. Similarly, there are other industries that will be impacted, and we want to get to the age group that's making the decisions around that. Now, there might also be younger kids for which we have an entirely different package. So in this case, the 6 to 10-year-old, maybe the 12-year-old, 13-year-old. I think that is the same type of content, but in a fundamentally different delivery mechanism. The question that we have is, do you think that we should even include university students that might already be in the pursuit of a degree in conjunction with the high school kids, given that there might be some social dynamic between the two that make it incompatible? I'm very open to hearing some thoughts around that as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, maybe someone in first year might still be okay, but I don't think any further than that. And like you say, I think the really young kids is quite exciting as a completely different sort of thing. But it is really important that although I guess they do already understand technology. I mean, they try and swipe everything and, you know, open things that, you know, are not technological, but it's like, why is this thing broken? So you know, they'll probably get it a lot quicker, but some sort of fun experience I think would be really cool for younger kids. But it is a different sort of track for sure.
Kevin, if I can jump in there just quickly, I think I told that at one of the national events. I haven't told it at all of them. There was a braai at my house where we had someone bring a Polaroid camera along, and then someone else had a 4-year-old child there. So I took the camera and I took a picture of the child, and the Polaroids that sort of kick out the photo after a couple of seconds, and you've got to wave it and hope for it to dry, and then the image appears. So we gave it to the 4-year-old, having taken a picture of him, and we said, "Here, here's a picture," and he took it and he kind of swiped at it. And he looked at it and he said, "Here's it back, it's broken. It doesn't want to change as I swipe." Now, you know, that's testament of a generation that's growing up with this technology. They're embedded, and it's a part of their mindset development. I think our primary market, I'm not saying those individuals are excluded, but our primary market are for individuals that have come through a system up until now, and now the rules have changed. So their embedded knowledge base and their embedded inherent way of thinking has been shaped through a system that does no longer allow for a successful long-term future. I think those are our primary candidates to say, let us at least alleviate the burden of awareness to start with, and to set you off on the start of this journey of understanding what this future looks like, given that the software that you've now been coded with is already outdated.
So I'm on the Facebook page here. I'd like to bounce around a bit because there's questions coming through, and obviously if people have thoughts, we'd really appreciate it. Put it up there. So some people have put up here, great idea. Lee's also asked, if you structure a course, what about those people that aren't local? So how could they do it in the online environment? There's another couple of questions which I'll come back to later. I think it should be open to all students. It's about educating people. I have a daughter who's studying and she is turning 30. And then I haven't seen high quality recorded sessions from Willem. Sessions need to be intro, intermediate, and advanced.
Yes.
So that's also interesting around the around the different types of products. So I'm gonna move on here. People want to post their comments.
Questions on Facebook. I don't know if you've looked at the Facebook page.
I'm on Facebook. Yeah. I'm on the page. Unless I'm missing something. So there's quite a few questions coming through here, but not necessarily relating to that. So I'm just gonna get started.
Just around asking around tertiary qualifications. When do we see those evolving to apply human ability and AI with technology? When will a tertiary course content adapt to something like this? Is a question there. Roger's saying come to Sun Valley School. And a day course would sound great. He's also just saying, why are you going to target kids under 10? People are saying 13 to 18 sounds good. So those are just some of the comments on Facebook.
Where are you seeing this, Kevin?
You need to refresh your Facebook.
Oh, is that what's wrong? I'm not refreshing. Oh, okay.
Just thanks for everyone that's giving input. I've got a pen here. I know that's not exponential, but I am making some notes. And Michael and I will certainly take some of this engineering feedback forward. Thank you very much for that. I do agree, intro, intermediate, advanced, fully. And as regards the quality of recordings, absolutely. We've been trying some experiments up until now, and the recordings haven't been quality. And typically also closed sessions where we've done them for corporate. One of the things that we thought in addressing the question as to what about non-local and digital citizens, if you like, so doing this online, is to say that if we are able to go through the first iteration of this, bearing in mind that our faculty members aren't academics and our faculty members aren't consultants. So it's no one that's trying to sell you something or that has some sort of an accreditation certification need. These are people that are enthusiasts, that are passionate about what was initially a hobby, that have turned it into a successful enterprise. And so they come to share their understanding and their passion. That's who our educators are, if you like. And I say educators in inverted commas. But they've also, by virtue of the fact that they're running businesses, they've got limited time frames. So we can't ask them to travel around the world, or consistently just deliver education material. We're going to ask them to share. And then the thinking was that out of the first program, at least we'll be able to set up proper AV and record those sessions, perhaps with some minor editing, and then be able to roll out the digital platform. You do lose a bit of touch if you don't have the personal engagement in class. So we think there's two benefits to in class. The first is that sort of vibe and the feeling that you get. Very important second point is that you're sitting in a learning environment with other people, creating a network. Because we don't envisage just Crawford or just Kuro having a delivery from us. We envisage school kids, and perhaps also the parents, by the way, from a variety of different schools coming together in one central location, which forms the opportunity to have new networks fostered. And we think that is equally important. So there will be a bit of a value lost by doing it digital, but we also understand that scalability can only be achieved through digital. So we'll have both. But we'll recommend that you come for the actual experience, because to play with a drone and to see someone else play with a drone are two different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
thanks for that, though. Very, very valuable questions. It prompts our thinking as well, so please keep them coming. Thank you.
So, guys, I'm putting up, if people do put the comments on the GoToMeeting, dashboard, I'm just putting them up on Facebook. So let's run through here just a couple of there's a good question here. There's a lot of talk because obviously today, one of the things we wanted to do was look at the whole exponentials with children, and we'll keep coming back to that, but equally around just, again, it was a fireside chat, so it was really around anything to do with exponentials, or even, Billy's also here around the GIDS 2.0, if anyone wants questions around that. But the question here was, and when it says World Migrate, it's just because I've copied it across from a quote here. But there's a lot of talk in some countries with regards to universal basic income, considering automation, AI, robotics, etc. Accordingly, as many jobs become redundant, there could be some merit in the concept. Is this likely to be embraced and implemented more widely? Also, more importantly, is this practical in a country such as South Africa?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually something I've read up quite a lot about, because I think the whole psychology around universal basic income is, it's a fascinating topic, and there's just so many questions. I think the Swiss they put it to a vote, and they all voted against it, which was quite interesting. If we imagine a world in which computers do all of the jobs and create all the value, and it's just a few entities that make a lot of money, obviously we can't have people without jobs, right? So we'll have to have income of some sort, but that's only if you imagine society in that way. And I'll try and come back to a society that I don't think will be in that way necessarily, for a number of reasons. But I think that universal basic income would at the end of the day do a great deal of damage. The reason why is because there'll be a certain group of educated go-getters who, if they get universal basic income, will basically spend their time maybe, I don't know, playing piano and being the best at it, or refining their talents, playing chess, I don't know, things that are basically not going to damage society and will allow people to fulfill their time and kind of achieve basic human fulfillment of sense of achievement, etc., without doing damage to society. But there'll definitely be a large element of society that is less educated and less prone to achieving, let's say, for example, and the most likely outcome for those guys to stave off their boredom is to take drugs and alcohol. Like I genuinely think that's what will happen if people have money and tons of free time, and we know how damaging that is to society already. So universal basic income scares me quite a lot. I think there could be massive problems. I don't know how you curb that, but I do think not that technology doesn't necessarily only take away jobs, and we saw that in the previous kind of industrial revolution, for example. Everyone was worried that if you can create a machine to do a human's job, that jobs will be lost. In actual fact, what happened as a result of that is that increase in efficiency freed up humans to do other things, and as a result, they became more efficient at those things. And actually, the amount of jobs in the economy grew as a result of that. I must admit that AI is going to kind of push those limits in a number of different ways. But let's just take an example. So drones is a great example. The drone industry, I was reading an article today. I think the prediction is that will actually add 35,000 new jobs to the economy. So here's a technology that it's basically flying a helicopter. It's been around for a while, but all of a sudden it's created an entire industry. And I mean, I think that jobs estimate could even be cautious, because you've got people flying, you've got all the guys building the software for it. There's a whole bunch of jobs that are being created for that. And that's as a result of an exponential technology. So it is an area that I actually want to do a lot of research into, and I've actually spoke to a friend of mine who's a lawyer who's just left her firm, who's also going to be looking into it, and kind of doing the net maths on the replacement versus the opportunities. And in human history, we've seen generally opportunities from technology. I hope that is the case going forward. If it isn't, I genuinely think there'll be damaging effects to society with universal basic income.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other comments?
Yeah, I think it's important for us not to fall. No, sorry, Scott.
Yeah.
Maybe to add to everything that Stan said, which I fundamentally agree with, it is important not to fall into the trap of thinking linearly about exponential tech, right? So if you assume that everything else stays the same, then yes, AI will take all of our jobs. But exponential tech changes not just one aspect of life, and there are many exponential technologies, and as a consequence, the entire landscape is undergoing change. And within that change, as Stan had correctly pointed out, many, many more jobs being made. We didn't, or created. We didn't say this on all the Wealth Migrate roadshow campaign stops that we had made throughout the country, but I think we said it in Cape Town. Crowdfunding in the first quarter of 2017 or 2017 had already created near 400,000 new jobs. That's one technology shifting a couple of other industries by virtue of the same token as the example that Stan had around drones. So we've got to think exponential as a whole, and that means that other things change as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So again, it comes back to a fundamental mindset shift more than anything else.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tend to agree exactly with what Willem said. Is that the way a lot of people are tackling things is, you know, using mindsets and that they've been using for the past 100 years in order to, you know, fix or predict what's going to happen in the future. And I really don't think we can do that. Although, I mean, that's a scary thing to say, because people want, you know, an answer, or want to know what is going to happen. And that, I mean, that sort of ties back a bit to Wilhelm's sort of comment here, which goes back to the education, where he's saying, you know, he has 3 kids. One's a final engineering student, still needs guidance. His matric son or daughter, I'm not sure, you know, wants to take a gap year. His child in grade 8, super bright, but they all have to sort of make a decision on their 5, 10, 25-year paths. And if there's no more need for accountants, lawyers, doctors, or anything repetitive, you know, they need to figure out what resonates with them, but you also still have to sort of make money now. So I think we are in a difficult space, and I think it might get a little bit more difficult in the next 5 or so years. Again, you know, just in terms of, it's quite difficult because you still got traditional and looking forward.
Totally. You know, Kevin, in the conversation we had this morning with predominantly CAs in the room was what's going to happen when AI and machine learning and blockchain converge, and how every single transaction doesn't need to be verified. Do we still need audit? You know, the audit firms each have almost a 2 billion rand a year audit business in South Africa alone. There's 4 of them, plus some small ones. Oh, all of that, you know, when they take 500 trainees per year, now they're going to take 5. What's going to be the effect? And here's the thing. There will be a transition period, right, which will be met with a lot of uncertainty and change. And just to translate it, in the CA space, yes, a lot of transactions will be verified. Yes, the anomalies will be picked out by AI. Absolutely. So the bookkeeping part of accounting has been taken out of the equation, but the interpretation as to whether or not a debit is on the income statement or on the balance sheet, or if it is on the balance sheet, whether it's a short-term asset, a medium-term asset, or a long-term asset. So the classification and the interpretation thereof is still not something that machines can grab at. And therefore, where the human plays inside of the value chain is shifting. We're not saying the entire value chain, all of a sudden, lawyers, doctors, engineers, all of them are gone. We're saying there will be an evolutionary period that will be a lot faster than what we're used to post-industrial revolution references that we have. And an awareness will help you determine the skills that you need to reposition yourself within those evolving value change. And there's time for that. So there's no need to panic. The only way that you need to panic is if you're actively choosing to do nothing about this, because, you know, then you will be.
Yeah. There's a question here, guys, from Leanne. So there's a question here from Leanne. Says, this question is for Willem. My question is blockchain and Bitcoin related. Which phase is blockchain on the 60s of exponential technology? Do you see Bitcoin as an exponential technology? If so, where do you see Bitcoin on the graph of the 60s?
Okay, so you want me to plot it back. The blockchain is, I think, partly deceptive. It's already digitized, so it's past that D. It's starting to cause first tremors of disruption. So I would plot it between those. As regards Bitcoin, well, you know, you read some of the stuff coming out of MIT. It supposes that Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency is the next big thing. It's, you know, it's about to disrupt banking and insurance as a whole, although not really insurance in my view. You read Singularity's latest pronouncement. They say that Bitcoin is broken and we need to fix it, and perhaps Ethereum is the fix for it. I would love to get Stan's perspective on this because he's quite deep into cryptocurrencies himself, you know, personally having a lot of research time. But my sense is that for most of the exponential technologies that we've touched on the road shows, and certainly the two we're talking about now, they're sort of, if you looked at that exponential graph of mine, they're in the knee of the curve, just beyond digitized, pre-disruptive, and of course the problem being that once they go into the next D, you know, the staggered Ds that come right after it are, you know, very, very short space of time. So we're still in the driving awareness and broad-based adoption phase for those, in my view. Michael might have an entirely different view.
Yeah, I think, Willem, I think your assessment of the time of the technology is correct. I think perhaps the underlying question, generally the one that I get asked is, you know, is Bitcoin going to become a thing? So, yeah. And I think the Bitcoin is the dad at the moment, for sure. But the market cap of Bitcoin has fallen off a great deal recently. There have been some problems with it. It's become too popular too quickly. And as a result, the fees are very high for transactions at the moment. Now, there are technical solves for this. But while the kind of debate is raging between the guys who, you know, the community, Bitcoin has lost a lot of market cap to Ethereum and to a lot of the other altcoins. So if you don't know much about this space, there's probably, I don't know, 50 alternative coins trading on an exchange. There's literally, I mean, there's good ones like Ethereum and there's ones that are just completely random. There's one called Potcoin, which is specifically for buying weed online. Literally, and it's listed on an exchange. So I think the question is maybe Bitcoin is the right coin, maybe it's not the right coin, but they've been going now for, I think, what's it like, 10 years, over 10 years. That blockchain has proved to be absolutely solid. It's been immutable. The technology has proven itself now. I think, you know, no one's been able to hack the blockchain. Any hack you've ever heard of was as a result of software that feeds into the blockchain. So cryptocurrency is coming. It's needed. As I said, over 100 billion market cap in cryptocurrency. That's not going to go away for any reason. Even if China says they don't like it and they don't want to use it, Japan's already said that they will use Bitcoin. Like, that's huge. So yes, I think Bitcoin is going nowhere. I'm a big advocate of it. I think it's a great way to store money. It's a great way to move money. And if you think about the world in a global sense, why would you have dollars or rands or anything else to transact internationally when you could have one currency that you don't have to pay fees swapping between? Like, it just makes so much sense. And we increasingly buy things online, and buying things online with Bitcoin is infinitely easier and cheaper, etc. as well. So don't get me wrong, there's some kinks that need to get worked out of it, big time. But we will have cryptocurrency in the future, and I think that everyone will own it and use it. Specifically, or most likely in developing nations, because their currencies are far less stable than the dollar, for example.
So that's quite interesting, because obviously the one of the questions here was from, so I'm trying to find the name here quickly. I'm just looking through, there was a whole bunch of questions. I just want to make sure. Oh yeah, so sorry, the name hasn't come up, but is buying Bitcoins a good investment from your perspective? So I think you've Dan pretty categorically said yes, you know, around that.
Yeah, I believe very much in the fundamentals. I think the only way that Bitcoin would fall off a cliff is if someone managed to hack the blockchain, and I know that there's no computer around today that can do that. So if I want to give personal investment advice, I'm very careful about that, because I'm personally invested in Bitcoin, but it's not an amount more than I can afford to lose. I also have half my portfolio in Bitcoin and the remaining other half in a bunch of other cryptocurrencies, in Ethereum and Ethereum Classic and a couple of the other ones, which I believe have sound fundamentals as a hedge. So it's very simplistic just to say, yes, buy Bitcoin. I think the value will go up. Personally, I do think the value will go up. But there's no way, as I would advise you to, stake your house or your car on it. You invest an amount that you can afford to lose, because it's very risky territory. And, for whatever reason, there could be, anything could happen, and you must treat it as a risky asset. Yet it is proving itself, but it's certainly not proven specifically Bitcoin. But it's the best one. It's the dad. If I was going to put money in anyone, I would put it in Bitcoin.
Paul also. Oh, sorry, Willem, but let me just put Paul's question up, because it sort of ties into this. He's just saying, given the big updates on cryptocurrencies around the world, are governments going to deal with it? How are they going to deal with it with regards to taxation? Oh, damn it! Sorry, I clicked on something here. Considering that most crypto transactions happen across borders, I'm certainly not suggesting more stringent regulation, but I'm interested nevertheless.
Paul, that ties in with the point that I wanted to raise. I think it's important, if you want to consider investment, and bearing in mind, I'm not a financial advisor, is to understand fundamentals. It's my view. I'm not a technical trader by any means, so I think you should look at the story behind why there's this development, and based on your understanding of that, decide if it's going to be value up, value down. First of all, Bitcoin is not issued by any government institution. It is a digital creation, the value of which is determined by virtue of supply and demand. So there's no gold that underwrites a blockchain. There's no oil that underwrites Bitcoin. It's a currency, the price of which is determined by virtue of the supply and demand within a finite space. There are only 21 million Bitcoins. Stan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think near 17 million have been mined. So we're nearing, is that more or less right? 17 million out of 21 million?
Yeah, I think a little bit more, but it's not finished being mined yet.
Okay, so when it does get finished, what will happen? Well, then you start paying fees, and so the mining capability will be sustained. There's an inherent sustainability around the blockchain and Bitcoin as a coinciding two pieces of technology. Now, if there's a limited amount of this stuff and the whole world starts to do trade on this, well, that tell you the value has to go up because of the finite amount and the near infinite demand for money. So if you believe those fundamentals, yes, then the value should go up. And if you like values going up, then potentially it's something to look at investing. Now, to Paul's specific question, will governments become harmonious in their management of this? No, we're not even on a harmonious management of human rights across the planet. And we've had a lot of time to practice getting into harmony. But absolutely not. Not everyone in the world, not every country in the world belongs to the International Criminal Court. Not everyone is a part of, by similar token, The Hague or the EU. So there will be differing views on this, which will cause disparity between regulatory bodies. The interesting question is going to be, well, how do digital citizens act in a space where they can be vocal, instantaneous, globally, and have strong views to express in and amongst, perhaps democracy? So I posed the question earlier on, and I don't want to make this a South African thing, but I posed the question earlier on, why do countries have a president or a prime minister? What is the function other than political and procedurally also? I struggle to see safe signing off, legislation. I don't want to oversimplify. But if blockchain can be a ledger that works in real time, is unhackable, and you can put assets onto it, what about putting your voting right onto the blockchain as an asset? And if you have that capability, that means that we can in real time deal with all policy votes, not just electoral votes, as and when is required. So effectively that takes away the need for a specific ruling party, and society can propose certain changes to how we govern our society and vote on it immediately. So, again, thinking exponentially as opposed to linear, let's not assume that there will be governments around indefinitely. I'm not saying short term, but indefinitely, that will have to find that harmony. Perhaps that's also something that changes.
Just while we're having this debate, I'm going to start putting up a few polls. just to get people's opinions and see what they're thinking. So I think let me run through some of these questions here. There's quite a few questions, and you can see the polls there. I can see only 46% of you have voted, so I've caught you reading your emails and your Instagram, etc., etc. So I know it's always, when you're doing a webinar, it's always better to have slides, although we specifically today didn't want to have slides. And Kevin tells me that if I'm playing around in the background, it's distracting. So I'm not sharing my screen. But I just want to go through the questions here and see. There's been some great conversation. There was one question, guys, that we bounced right from the beginning that I'd like to just ask, and it's off in another whole tangent. But I have family and friends in the milking business, importing stainless steel milking tanks, servicing equipment on dairy farms. How long will we still have dairy farms, milk coming from cows? What should they do to prepare themselves for the new technology, artificial milk, etc., coming?
Sure.
Scott, I've lost it. Is there any chance I can get the poll off my screen? I can't see the cameras anymore. Do you know how to? Oh, there we go. I'm back. Yeah, that's a lot easier.
Welcome to the world of webinars, Stan.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, when the poll's up, people go.
I know that it's Sunday afternoon and people are browsing their Facebook and reading about the Knysna fires, and so I'm just keeping people on point so that they're concentrating and coming back to where we're at here.
Okay.
Okay.
Look, probably the best place to talk about artificial milk. I've only heard of artificial meat. I didn't even know they were making artificial milk.
Well,
yeah, I can give a principal answer here, because I'm not in the dairy industry per se, and as a consequence, I can't tell you all the inflection points of every exponential technology inside of that industry. You're going to need a couple of things to make an answer for that question. The first is obviously the understanding of which technologies exist that are exponential and what their broad-based impacts are. Second to the broad-based impact, to work down into the specific impact on a particular industry. And for that, typically, you have a strategy conversation. It's important to understand who else is in the ecosystem and what proofs of concepts and experiments are being conducted in and around a dairy and artificial milk. But and having said all of that, I still believe that a lot of the old hardware, old asset companies of the past will transform into data companies in the future. So, as an example, let me prompt just some thinking in this arena.
Well, sorry, Willem, just to jump in there. I mean, I had a meeting last week with that Derek and Lee organized with CBRE, which is one of the biggest commercial agents in the world, and then with two other companies, Kushner and I forget the name now. Pretty much have been giving out their research for free for years and years and years. And they finally realized that their most valuable asset is their data. And one of their head guys literally last week said they're no longer giving it out, so that young and exponential companies can't take their data and use it. It's just interesting, but it's the exact thing of what you just said. They thought they were a real estate company, and they actually realize now they're a data company.
Absolutely. Scott, there was a logistics company that we did some work with back in the day that wanted to put Internet of Things, so sensors and network points, nodes, onto all of their trucks, such as to be able to measure when tires go, when it's time for preventative maintenance, are there insurable events that could be avoided by virtue of being smarter around the data. And eventually, they sold all of their trucks, got rid of all of the hard infrastructure, and by virtue of having accumulated this data set and the methodology with which to accumulate more data, they started selling the data pieces around routes, around road surface, around high risk and low risk areas to all the other remaining logistics companies. So what started as a logistics company merged into a data company. Now, if I look at that same principle and I look at dairy, I would think, okay, number one, I think we're going to replace cows. Just by virtue of DNA extraction, and next meat, modern meadows. There are a variety of companies out there that are already playing in this space. Number two, cellular agriculture is going to become a more widespread reality. It is already a reality. It will become a more proliferated reality. But then, who provides the data of what goes into manufacturing of the synthetic milk? Like, who's getting that right now? Perhaps there's an opportunity to say, in parallel with running your current business, is the start of the process of accumulating the data, such as to be able to generate a new asset, the application of which, in the obvious sense, might be to provide the data for the mix that goes into certain types of milk. But having that data as an asset to available to dispose of, if you like, opens up a variety of other opportunities that sit inside of a corridor that you haven't wandered down yet. So my sense is that it's not a hedging of a bet situation, but the cultivation of new opportunities by virtue of harnessing data. We're not sure exactly what that outcome looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, can I just end that point by saying, I know that in itself it's not a satisfactory answer because it doesn't give, well, here are the next 3 steps as a preferred solution. But that is the nature of exponentials, is to be broadly aware and to be broadly ready for a variety of things that might come your way by turning on the capabilities that are currently sitting in your domain. What that answer as a manifestation looks like down the track isn't tellable at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Willem, Wilhelm has also just made another comment just that sort of fits in line with this, in that he's saying in his engineering business they are quite advanced in terms of exponential tech, but a lot of their customers are sort of still very linear in terms of their businesses. How should one actually help getting their customers faster up the exponential curve, to catch up?
So here's where Michael and I already have products, right? Because this was our primary market. Invite your clients for a symposium where we're more than happy to collaborate with you. You can also find other exponential experts if you like to try them. That for a half a day, give an expose on a lot of these exponential technologies and bring your client base on board by virtue of creating an opportunity for them within which to become educated and aware. That's the easiest way, because when KPIs of your clients meet innovation needs of your clients, innovation loses and KPI wins, because the business of today will always be the business of today. No one is paid necessarily. Very few companies have roles within which to drive innovation, and as a consequence, very few people are paid to think, how could new technology make my job or my industry even better, more efficient, and perhaps open up new opportunities? Everyone's got a mortgage. Everyone's got a kid. They say a white picket fence, 2.4 kids, and a Volvo is sort of the standard profile. And our KPIs allow us to have those things in life, the stability, the familiarity, the predictability. So they're not going to wander out unless perhaps you're a 3D printing enthusiast and you've read a little bit about it or done some YouTube searches around it. But very few people are paid and have the time and the inclination and the resources available to go into 16 different exponential technologies and their commercial consequences. Stan and I've got that, and we're happy to roll it out in conjunction with enterprise to stimulate client understanding. I mean, sorry, Stan, I'm almost speaking on your behalf. I apologize for that, but I'm sure you will agree.
No, yeah, not at all. I guess at this venture I'd be foolish not to just reaffirm the fact that Paper Play in itself also provides advisory service around exponential technology. So these are the kind of conversations we have with our clients who are trying to grapple with how they're going to use exponential technologies going forward. So I'm obviously always happy to speak to people about that. And then Willem and I found that the best introduction towards anything like that is to sit down and listen to 10 guys talk about these technologies with the real depth of understanding. And that's kind of it's a journey you go on in kind of going, okay, this is what's possible now, how can I apply that to what I'm doing?
Yeah.
So guys, I'm just putting up the polls and stuff. There's a lot of questions coming through, Kevin. So what I suggest, if you can just keep asking them, I'm taking the ones off the chat box.
Kate's just asked, well, practically, what would be the best way to actually buy Bitcoin? That's
Hello?
Still here?
Willem or Michael there to answer that?
So I think I lost
Oh.
sound there. Best way to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that the by miles the easiest way is just to go onto luno.com, luno.com. I'll put it in the comments now. It's really easy. I think if you're buying an amount below 15,000 Rand, you don't even have to FICA yourself, or you can just send through your FICA docs and get accredited. But yeah, it's really easy. You can do it on there. And then if you ever get excited or interested in all of the other coins, you can go onto poloniex.com and you can buy all the other coins there or read up about them, etc. And that's pretty cool. I actually advise that.
Stan, just to add, we're assuming that Kate sits in South Africa, which is why we're saying Luno, because Luno is an exchange that allows you to buy Bitcoins in Nigeria, South Africa, Singapore, and then there's one other that eludes me now. Kate, if you're not in South Africa, it would be advisable to Google, your local country's exchange, because typically how it works is you have a bank account that's got old currency in it. Whether that is tangible or intangible is irrelevant. It's referred to as fiat. So F-I-A-T, fiat currency. You'll take fiat currency out of a bank and deposit it into the fiat bank account of the exchange, who will give you a wallet. The exchange, having taken the deposit, will then convert that deposit into an amount spendable by you in the wallet, and the wallet is linked to the exchange, which allows you to determine the price at which you are happy to buy the cryptocurrency.
That was very complicated, but thank you. The next question sort of veers towards real estate from Roger, just saying, what sort of disruption can we expect sort of in the real estate industry? For example, the role of agents, how's that going to change? How should people prepare for that disruption?
Sure. So, okay, that is a very broad question. Real estate is subject to a variety of changes, as we've illustrated on the roadshows, amongst other through the likes of 3D printing, that hopes to touch the manufacturing or creation process or value chain of real estate. But because you've centered this around agents, I'll endeavor down that route specifically. So my view is that agents fulfill the role of logistics enablement. In other words, the guy willing to sell his house isn't always at his house, and you would want to have a look as a prospective buyer inside of that house. And an agent fulfills the logistics and trust role by virtue of having a set of keys and being someone that can facilitate the negotiations between supply and demand of both the money as well as the house. There is, of course, the Malcolm Gladwell question of incentive, and is the real estate industry aligned with customers in that hoping to make a sale versus to make a sale at an appropriate price. I'm going to not include that in the scope of my answer because that'll get me into really hot water. But effectively, if the trust and the logistics are a part of the role that an agent fulfills, let's fast forward 10 years. Let's fast forward to a place where wireless broadband is installed in homes. You might know that in Scandinavian countries, the majority of Scandinavian countries, broadband is considered a constitutional right. And a lot of other countries are looking at similar legislative pieces. So not far-fetched in believing that broadband and connectivity will be proliferated. So let's assume that we get there. Let's assume that we have smart homes where locks are controlled by, remotely via mobile devices and log on, and that homes are security enabled through cameras. So now tell me, how could I not let you into my house? Because I've got cameras to see whether you take something, so physical proof. I can control the access both at the gate as well as the entrance of the home. And so if I have the money, if you have the money and I have the house, you're happy with the house, whether you reviewed it physically or digitally, and we can create a smart contract through the likes of the blockchain. Well, then perhaps there isn't a role for an agent in the way that we currently know the roles, because the exchange of the title deed can happen on the blockchain, the exchange of the cash can happen on the blockchain through the use of a smart contract, and any logistics and or trust consideration that we had had leading up to this point can be facilitated through connected technology and IoT. If you ask me, in the medium to long term, I think that role is going to fundamentally change. Having said that, I'm simplifying because bear in mind that the majority of people don't have access to understanding legal contracts of purchase and offer to purchase and the like. And a lot of the times you find that agents are very well versed inside of that space to be able to facilitate the buyer's understanding. Because I might be a great dairy farmer, but I'm not a great lawyer, and therefore I'm a little bit fearful of reading and signing a contract, the legal ramifications of which I'm not necessarily au fait with. So there might still be a human element around that. Although in my long-term view, I think that'll be AI-based as well, personally. Michael, I don't know. You and I have had these conversations a couple of times. Perhaps there's some input from your side on the real estate.
No, Willem, I mean, I very much agree with your sentiment. It's just interesting to note that these kind of things, it's not even the future, it's happening now. So there's a company in Cape Town called Property Fox where you can list and sell your property. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's at like a flat fee of 30,000 Rand, or otherwise it's 3%, whatever it is. It's like far, far, far below the norm. And, you know, my sister sold her flat on there at the price she wanted within 2 weeks and paid, you know, that massive reduction in commission.
Michael, just to disrupt you, there's someone who's disrupting them called easy.com. They just charge you 90,000 Rand. So yeah, I mean, and have AI in terms of their contracting. So yeah, it's definitely ready.
And Kevin, have a full page ad in the Sunday Times today, by the way.
Who's that? Easy.
Easy.
Now, there is a business to get involved in.
Yeah, so just, you know, this is the type of thing. Why wouldn't you sell your house through it if you can? Like, you know, it's sad for agents, but agents will have to, you know, I don't know what the next thing is. There's definitely will always be a need for agents from the personal perspective, because humans are humans, but maybe there'll be a need for a lot less of them. So yeah, these are the type of things.
Stan, I think very strongly, and I mean, I've played in this space for a long time, and in many ways with IPS, we Ubered ourselves before we got Kodak. And what I mean by that is that, you know, if you look at travel agents, you know, there is a need for them if you do a very complicated trip via China, and then you've got to go to Japan, and then you've got to go back to Brisbane, and then you've got to come back to, you know, Johannesburg or something. But quite frankly, if I need to fly to Joburg, I don't need a travel agent.
Yeah.
And or if I want a holiday to Mauritius, you know, it's really quite simple nowadays. And I think that buying and selling a house is exactly the same thing. You know, if I want to buy a castle in Switzerland, you know, probably I'm going to need an agent. But quite frankly, if I need to buy an apartment in the center of Cape Town, you know, I don't believe that that the value add is there at all. And I'm talking buying and selling. And I mean, literally in 1995, Bill Gates said all middlemen will disappear. Now people can, you know, they can listen to that, or they can keep going, no, we're different. In this country, it's different. Or they can read the writing on the wall.
Just another question around real estate from Pierre is just in terms of, can we feel safe as real estate investors owning homes, earning rent into the future? Will exponential technology disrupt this? And should we change our strategy?
I might have a controversial view here. I think that before exponential tech in the specific application as regards real estate disrupts the valuations of real estate, I think we're going to own some real estate on the moon. There was a company by the name of Moon Express that got a US license awarded to them by NASA to land on the moon as of the end of this year. So it's the first time in history that a non-state enterprise will now launch rockets and land them on the moon. And of course the question then is, like Columbus that found America, or Jan van Riebeeck that came to South Africa, and every other explorer that approached new territory, what happened to that territory? It was governed by typically the remnants of a legislative regime, if you like, from, you know, where the traveler originated from. So my question is, if an American lands on the moon first as a private individual, or for that matter Mars, even though he might be a South African alumni. What rule of law will be at the order of the day inside of that new jurisdiction. So yeah, that's something to think about, because there are some serious funding and some serious companies with actual shareholder mandates that are now looking at celestial bodies. If you find that real estate is, again, a supply-demand thing, a little bit of location that changes the nuance and the pricing, but it's supply-demand, finite amount of supply, infinite amount of demand, and all of a sudden we open up a new can of worms around more supply, that might have some serious immediate fundamental impact. But in the meantime, my sense around real estate investment, still safe for a bit.
Yeah, so just quickly, a couple of things. One is that you'll see that there's a post there that most of you have voted on, but I just want to make you aware. It's something that actually happened in Cape Town at the Wealth Partner Dinner, where, I've had the privilege of going to Singularity University and going on a lot of the trips there, and I know Willem and I were talking about, you can turn up on Google Campus, and for most people you're not even allowed on the campus. I managed to use a bit of South African persistence to get on, but I couldn't get in the door, like I couldn't actually get in the building. Whereas I know that Willem's been over there on a proper kind of organized exercise, and you get inside and you meet people, etc. So what we were talking about is actually doing a Wealth Partner Exponential technology trip, and going to Silicon Valley, going and meeting a couple of these type of companies, possibly even going and seeing the Zapposes of the world. And that's what this questionnaire or this poll was up on the screen. Would you be interested? Obviously, a lot of people said need more info. That would be a work in progress. It's something that he's done. A number of corporates have done it. I know, Willem, I don't know if you wanted to explain the one that you did with a number of corporate guys. You don't have to explain who the corporates were, but the way you explained it, where they went over and actually saw it with their own eyes, and how that just fundamentally shifted things completely.
Yeah, thanks for that, Scott. Absolutely. So, we've done multiple trips like these, both private and from a previous life perspective. Effectively, what would happen is that someone would hear about exponential technology and be intrigued, because it does sound a little bit far-fetched. I mean, publicly, I've just said that I think we'll cut up land in the moon. That's not a normal Sunday afternoon conversation yet.
Unless you're drinking red wine, dude.
Well, the glass is now almost empty.
Almost time to go for that lamb shank.
Oh, I can smell it in the background, Kevin. Yeah, so firstly, people are exposed to the broad-based concepts around exponential technology. It sounds like sci-fi. Then you see some of the video clips that we play you of actual companies, and so now start to wonder, is this really real? And then you meet Stan, and Stan exposes our kids to a robotics session in which a kid builds an actual AI machine learning-enabled robot, that also takes pictures while flying, called a drone. And industries are starting to use it. Now you're starting to wonder, hell, the stuff that I learned at school, maybe all of it isn't as relevant as these guys are starting to say. But how can I still be convinced? How do I get past the obstacle of almost psychological barriers that preclude me from getting into the new mindset because it sounds so fantastical? So what we did is we engineered a trip, and we said, okay, let's go to the cradle of innovation. Let's go showcase. So lots of trips to Tel Aviv, to Amsterdam, to Silicon Valley, and of course Silicon Valley being the cradle, the mothership of all innovation in the world, although Tel Aviv is a very close second. And then you see it for yourself. You see the self-driving cars in Mountain View, and it's not just Google cars, it's a variety of competitors that have got actual self-driving cars, and as you are crossing the street, a self-driving car would stop and let you through. Now, when that happens to you, trust me when I tell you, you get a feeling of a cold shiver running down your spine, because all of the sci-fi stories that these two oaks have been telling you about all of a sudden become very tangible and very real. A robot just let you cross the road safely. Whew. Then you get back in the plane, you fly home, and your Emirates plane has landed by AI, and you realize it's been all around me all this time.
So guys, you can't vote on this poll. Someone actually closed the poll, so if you are interested in that a little bit more, just put exponential trip in the chat box, and yeah, because obviously people could vote, but it closed. I want to come back to that real estate conversation that we were having, and I think one of the things that's really important there when you consider it is also that people need houses. But what's interesting is that people want the millennials won't want to necessarily live in houses, as in they won't want to own a house and have to be stuck there for the next 5 years. But they're still going to need somewhere to stay. It's just going to become a lot more flexible. And something my uncle said to me years ago, is that as technology gets better and as transportation gets better, people are going to move to the sun. And, that's one of the reasons he moved to Brisbane. And when you think about it, really, why live in New York in the freezing cold and or Chicago, et cetera, when you can live in far better and nicer places? And it's really interesting when you consider what Roger Hamilton's doing with the entrepreneur resorts, the entrepreneur hubs that he's creating around the world in nice places like Bali and on game farms in South Africa. If you want to go on our platform, you can actually go and see it. We were actually crowdfunding one of the resorts, a Big Five game reserve, where entrepreneurs can get together and co-mingle and co-create and ultimately, be in great environments. And I think that's going to be some of the biggest disruption to real estate, quite frankly, is that those global trends are going to impact where the real estate opportunities lie. And it won't necessarily be the 42nd floor of an apartment in Manhattan. Guys, there's a lot of questions here that have been coming through and that we've been posting. I'm not sure, Kevin, from your perspective, if you want to keep going through them.
I've been through all of them. There's two that have just popped through. One being, what will the effect of 3D printing be on the future of real estate investment?
Okay. So and if you don't mind, I'll take that one. And unless you want to give me all the questions first.
No. That's the other one's more sort of a comment saying, I sold my house without an agent 10 years ago. And saying exponential technologies, as Willem says, he believes it's going to make South Africa a lot safer because we're going to be able to, follow people's movements, etc., and then this will be a great place to live. And then just a bunch of people saying that the exponential trip sounds amazing.
Cool. Okay, so 3D printing, I think there are two immediate impacts inside of the real estate space, just to answer that question first. The first and foremost is obviously taking construction-based composites and feeding them into 3D printers with a modified print bed, such as to be able to modularly print parts of a building and to then assemble it. Now, if you're able to do that, as we've illustrated in the Wealth Migrate roadshow, that you are already, but at scale, so not people winning a competition by modifying something. So when it becomes industrial and standard set, regulated scale, I think you're going to find that the cost of assembly goes way, 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 way down, the cost of construction. If the cost goes down, that's one thing. But if you understand real estate, you will know that the value of a real estate development is not necessarily based on cost plus margin. It's based on the net present value of all of the leases associated with that particular construct. Now, we're talking about an earlier part of the value chain that's being disrupted by virtue of how it's constructed. We're not necessarily saying that changes the lease agreements. Of course, nothing is isolated from exponential technology. Everything is impacted, but we're going to have to wait and see how NPVs of leases are recalculated by virtue of exponential technology to be able to understand the outcome of that question. Having said that, one more comment, and then I think Scott's probably a really good guy to have a go at this question. We know that a very, very large number of the world's population does not have housing other than informal settlement as yet. And as a consequence, there is a major, major backlog to fix before we're able to redefine what real estate looks like in everyday sense. Because the everyday sense of real estate, depending on where you ask that question, is either some cobbled together structures that informally constitute my abode, or, typically everyone that's got an internet connection listening to this call, something a little bit more white collar. So that would be my first impact point. The second impact point to say that 3D printing is also now becoming part of a broader exponential trend, which is called additive manufacturing. And additive manufacturing is informed largely by a technology called generative design, in which essentially computers generate new architectural structures that haven't been considered by humans before just by virtue of brute force of the number of transactions and or designs that these computers can consider as appropriate for the structure that we're hoping to build. And so the second part of my answer as to how 3D printing is going to impact real estate is that I think you're going to see very weird looking, very weird designed architectural structures that have been constructed through 3D printing but have been conceived of by virtue of AI/machine learning in combination, commonly referred to as generative design. On the supply and demand, I would actually personally love to hear Scott's view on that. You know, I don't think there is enough real estate for the world as a whole for even very cheap real estate to manufacturing processes to necessarily disrupt the industry as a whole in the short term. Definitely in the medium to long term, but not the short term.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you just take that whole thing that Peter Diamandis talks about, the 3 billion, new minds joining the, the global population, most of them are living in what most of us on this call would call substandard housing. And, so I think there's a huge amount that needs to happen just to solve that challenge first before we start worrying about the next challenge. So I think it kind of backs up what you're saying, Willem, but I think the demand is far beyond what the supply will be able to deliver in the short term. And quite frankly, I don't believe ever that the 7 billion people living on this planet, even if it gets less, they will still want somewhere to sleep. There'll still be, whether it's multiple locations, 12 different locations a year going all over the place, people are still going to need a place physically to be in a boat.
Mm. Yeah, I think I want to make a comment and state that someone needs to own these buildings. It doesn't matter how it looks. At the end of the day, there's still going to be someone that requires to own something, if it's made by a 3D printer or not. And I think in saying that, if we look at the millennials changing and not owning property, that essentially means that someone else needs to. And I think that's where the opportunity lies as well.
Well, Billy, I mean, on that note, I mean, that sorry, Kevin?
I was just saying, yeah, definitely in the short to medium term, and, that's definitely a big opportunity to.
Well, that's why. Yeah, I mean, that's why that's quite frankly why I don't get that excited by the property foxes and the easies, etc. Because really they're taking the current way of buying and selling, and they're just really taking they're just taking classifieds and taking them online in many ways. They've got better than where they were. But I fundamentally believe the gap here is actually in the investment space, not in the buying and selling space. But that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
So Voldy made a comment about Rethink X. Did we chat about that?
No.
So he just said, Rethink X is an independent think tank that analyzes and forecasts the scope, speed, and scale of technology-driven disruption and its implication across society. So he's actually put in a link there if anyone wants to go and check it out. It looks like a very, very interesting website. Someone else made a comment here about buying and selling of Bitcoins and being able to do it on different exchanges. I know, Willem, you only really spoke about that at the Wealth Partner dinners. But maybe just, I'm conscious of the time here, guys. We're hitting the 90-minute mark. But just quickly, just mention what you've told us before, Willem, in terms of the arbitrage of different markets and how if you buy Bitcoins overseas, you can get them a lot cheaper than possibly here in South Africa and or in different countries cross-border.
So now I'm giving away some trade secrets here. But,
well, you don't have to go into all the detail, but you can keep it high level if you want to.
Sure. So effectively, a Bitcoin is a homogeneous product or thing, irrespective of where on the planet you take it. It's like a diamond, right? It is the same diamond all over, except for one difference in that the measurement is the same. So one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. There's not clarity and cut and differentiating nuances. And as a consequence, you would think that because the price is supply demand driven, that it would be the same price all over the planet. Funnily enough, it's not. An exchange in the US will list a Bitcoin at a different price to an exchange in South Africa, to a different price to an exchange within the EU, and even within sub-areas within the EU. For that matter, also, different Bitcoin exchanges in the US will quote different prices, purely by virtue of the market penetration of that particular exchange. And as a consequence, you find that you can buy a Bitcoin on Kraken, as an example, Kraken.com being a US-based exchange, and sell it on Bitstamp for a higher or a lower price. Now, hopefully you're buying at a low price and selling at a high price. Having said that, you know, I've been tracking the arbitrage opportunities, and between the South African one and the EU sort of broad-based Bitcoin price index, there have been some nice arbitrage opportunities over a number of weeks. What we have seen is, though, subsequent to what was perceived as the price crash, which incidentally wasn't a price crash, it was a short-term market correction. If you are into the numbers, what I'm referring to is when Bitcoin dropped from 49,000 Rand a Bitcoin down to, I think it was back down to like 29, 30,000. Right now it's at 41,094. So it's almost recovered all of the losses that it's made from that very high. Subsequent to that price adjustment instance, we found that the arbitrage between South Africa and the EU has gone from $900 per coin to, earlier today, it was around 97. So we're not saying the arbitrage is gone. We're saying it's a timing thing, and you have to have your timing and your liquidity 100% right to be able to access those opportunities. And as more people hear about it, thanks, Scott, because now a number of people will now know about this after this web broadcast, the markets will start to even out because you're enabling supply demand. So it's basic Adam Smith stuff, which is quite cool, because even inside of this exponential world, you find that the old school economics to an extent are still holding water, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah, while we're still talking about Bitcoin, Leanne just says to Stan, you know, is it trade or mine? You know, what's, you know, where are we right now? And if you are mining, you know, are you using things like Hashflare or Genesis, or, you know?
Yeah, I haven't actually got into mining myself. I mean, I know you can buy like segments of a Bitcoin mining operation, and you'll earn money off that, sure. And I must admit, I haven't calculated the ROI on that at all. So I can't really give too much advice about how your capital will be spent well or not within the mining. I mean, I think if you're earning money in Bitcoin and then the price of Bitcoin keeps going up, obviously you're going to get good returns on that. So it does make sense. But I can't pretend to be a mining expert because I haven't done it myself.
Cool. No, awesome.
Guys, I'm conscious of the time here. What we have done...
If I look at Facebook, it doesn't seem like there are any further questions, and there's none coming through on GoToWebinar. So I don't know if there are, you know,
what I wanted to say, Kevin, is that I've been trying to, as I see you, I've been trying to put up the links and also take questions if there were questions that were put within the chat box functionality. So anyone that goes to the Wealth Migrate Facebook page and finds this this post, and then you'll have all the comments below it. Almost all the comments that we've been making all the way through, we've been actually putting up, including all the different questions, etc. And you know, maybe my request here would be for us guys that are on here, from Billy and Kevin and Stan and Willem, you know, maybe take a read through this afterwards, if not tonight, because you're drinking red wine and lamb shank, but you know, tomorrow. And if there are things that you want to add or links that you want to add, then people would be able to just link to that. So you know, my suggestion is that anyone that's been on this call, you know, go and find that, like that. You know, I'd request you share it with your friends. It would be appreciative, because one of the things we really want to do is get the message out there. But maybe, you know, particularly Stan and Willem, if you could kind of read through our postal questions, if there's anything else that you think, any links or whatever that you want to add to that, I think it would be quite valuable, and we'll almost create a little library of content around some of these questions in terms of where we're at. So, you know, if there are no more questions coming through, my request, and I'm conscious of the fact it's Sunday evening, and the whole purpose of this session was to do an Ask Anything. Obviously, Kevin is here. Villy's been here from the whole due diligence side, Stan and Willem on the exponential side. And really today we came with no fixed agenda around what people could or did want. And so really it was a kind of a Q&A. I would love you to also give comments, please, on the Facebook page around your thoughts and whether you found it valuable, whether we should be doing more of these. And what I mean by more of these is more of these kind of Ask Anything sessions where it's more of a community fireside chat versus a fixed agenda where, you know, in the past we've always done webinars that have had a fixed agenda really in terms of what we're looking at. So what I would ask in terms of the four of you is to kind of give, you know, a last comment and thoughts around what you're thinking and, you know, in terms of next steps or anything that you think is relevant, and then we can look to wrap up this evening. And yeah. So I don't know what order you want to go in, but I'll leave that up to you guys. Maybe let's start with you, Kevin, and we'll just work our way around.
Yeah, no, sure. So I mean, ultimately, to the people who are online and to the people who watch this afterwards, I mean, exponential technologies are here and they're going to, you know, make an impact in your life. I think the key thing is not to be worried or scared about it, but as Willem also sort of alluded to, is to actually just learn more, find out more, and see where you can stand in making sure that you don't fall behind. There's so much opportunity. I think get your linear brain away and think abundantly, and the world can only get better. So that's how I think I'm choosing to live my life. So Michael, over to you.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, agree with your sentiments. I suppose from our side, I just yeah, to reiterate that please do give us feedback on how you'd like to see this kind of packaged for kids. As we said, I think we're going to focus on teenagers for now, but you know, if the need and the demands there, we can broaden that scope. So, but that'll really be contingent on your feedback.
And so Sam, sorry for butting in, but what I suggest we do is we're going to create a Survey Monkey, and we're going to put a whole survey together on Survey Monkey, which we'll post to this Facebook page and also make available to everyone that we've engaged with over the last couple of weeks, so that we can also get a deeper analysis of the data and the feedback on what people want as well.
Cool. Okay, great. And then yeah, if there are any further questions, I do have a lot of people asking me about cryptocurrencies. Yeah, shoot me through an email. I think Scott's put my LinkedIn profile up there. You can just find me on there, and I'll post my email as well to answer kind of individual questions, because I know people have a lot of questions about that. Yeah, and thanks for being involved in the discussion. It's been a nice chat.
Right, Willie?
Yeah, I think luckily, I don't know, sometimes a lot of people reckon that when I communicate, it was well worth it and that there's no questions asked you, which was a bit disappointing today in not having any questions. But yeah, please feel free to contact me and get hold of me if there's any due diligence questions. But in saying with the exponential side of things, I went to watch a movie last night. What is it was called Fast and Furious, and the whole scary part for me was the fact that I was a bit more had more knowledge now about what's going on, and for me when they actually took the cars and there was like this chase scene by they activating the cars, the vehicles, you know, which was the scary part for me is because that's the reality that we live in, you know. And I think the one thing in saying this is that it was sometimes some of these movies are a bit of popcornish, you know, you can't really believe it. But for me, I realized that it is real, you know. Our electronic cars can have a mind of its own if you consider that carefully. But in saying this is that I think one of the points that Willem made during the course of the workshops was that you need to know what you stand for. And I think that's for me the most important thing is that because of all these changes happening and now it's really picking up a lot of speed. I think that's for me the most important thing is to know what you stand for. And I just want to thank Willem and Michael in sharing this with us and willing to educate the kids about this, because I think it's pivotal.
I'm going to quickly butt in before you, Willem, talking about movies. I watched it's a 2013 movie today called Her, which is about a guy who falls in love with his artificial intelligence. It's a little bit dramatic, a little bit girly, but if you want to know where AI is going, and we're talking about movies, it was bloody interesting, actually. But anyway, Willem.
I saw that movie. It was not a Windows-based AI. So I suppose, yeah, thanks for the audience. You know, I wanted to say from the beginning, just condolences to anyone that's been involved in the NISNA space. Let's hope that we can use crowdfunding to help rectify some of the wrongs that have inadvertently happened in that space. I know Scott's got some stuff in that. As regards the children, I think we should be doing the pilot in Joburg and then roll it out to KZN and Cape Town. And I think that we should do that you know, in the next sort of 5 weeks. So Stan and I will take the feedback that's come out of this session and we'll consolidate it. We're going to build the first product. We hope that we fail in some aspects and win in some other. And again, if there are any points forward for us, other than the ones that have already been raised, we sincerely appreciate that. So yeah, I look forward to seeing the kids in class.
Awesome. Thanks, Willem. Well, listen, just from my side, I think really what Willem's talking about is really from a NISNA perspective. You know, over 400 homes have been lost, formal homes, and over 200 homes have been lost, informal homes. You know, I believe a lot of the formal homes people will be able to get their properties back through insurance, etc. And so this is the campaign that we actually launched just yesterday. And my request to you is please go along. If you can't afford to put your own money in, do me a favor and just spread the word. I know a hell of a lot of people are trying to put money into NISNA right now, or talking about it or asking. Two things I would ask you. One is be careful. There's a lot of middlemen in NISNA, a lot of people that will try and take advantage and say it's in the name of charity and pocket it. I've got plenty of live evidence of that. And secondly is that as much as they need blankets, water, and whatever short term, I think that people actually really need to focus on the long term. And I mean, literally, these are pictures on the right here I took with my own hands of literally people's homes that have been flattened. A Wealth Migrate client has lost his home, 30 families from my son's school. And this is actually a video I took on Wednesday night, literally the fires from my balcony. It was pretty terrifying. So I would really ask you to go out there and share it. Two other things that I think are relevant is that with regards to the children, you know, I'm super excited about this project that Stan and Willem are doing. I really think it's really, really important, and I hope that my son can get involved in it as soon as possible. And then two other things that are relevant is that one is that we've got the Wealth Weekend coming up from the 23rd to the 26th of June for all the wealth partners. If you're not a wealth partner, reach out to us. It's only really for the wealth partners and for specific VIPs. But it is a weekend where we get to spend time with like-minded people discussing some of these incredible trends and what's happening around the world and some of the opportunities that are happening specifically for us in the exponential space and then the real estate space. So a lot of this conversation we had around the real estate is going to happen all weekend. And then if you don't know what a wealth partner is, it's basically shareholders in our platform. You know, a lot of people were interested in investing in the real estate and then started saying, well, how do we invest in the platform? You know, how do we get involved in these new age technologies of crowdfunding and blockchain and really kind of this exponential technology? And, you know, I know Willem actually made a joke about it at the Cape Town event. You know, if any of us had the opportunity to invest early in an Uber or an Airbnb, we certainly would have, knowing what we know today. And I think these long-term trends, you know, I'm listening to a great book just at the moment around the founders from Airbnb and how everyone told them that they were wrong and it was never going to happen. And they actually took every single rejection as an invitation, which I love. And, you know, so for me, if you are interested in that, it's not only the opportunity to be involved in a company that hopefully can make a lot of money. Equally, there's the risks. It's still a technology startup. But by the same token, what I think is more valuable is being part of a like-minded global community and being able to learn within that environment. And, you know, one of the things that's critical and one of the reasons I've been pushing Willem and Stan to even, you know, be on this webinar, but not only on the webinar for the course, is that for us as part of the Wealth Partner community, it's essential that our children are equipped to be global citizens and be able to be a force for good going forward in the future and ultimately to be able to add value, which I think is critically important. And that's where these trips to America and equally for the children are equally as important. And the last thing for me is that I feel very, very passionately that where the future is going with exponential technologies is that in the past, you know, you had to be Mother Teresa to go out and do something really impactful and purposeful on the planet. I believe nowadays you can do it through business and equally achieve the same objectives. In fact, far higher from a scale perspective, but equally, you know, you don't have to be Mother Teresa and do it in a poverty space. You can do it, what Kevin said, from the abundant space, which is really what I get truly excited for. So that's all from me for tonight. I'm going to come back to this Facebook page. You know, go on the Facebook page that we've set up. You know, it's all here. I would really ask you, go and like it, share it with your friends. If you've got more questions, put it there for all of us on the panel tonight. Let's go and answer some more questions there and share it and really create like a little information cycle here. And I think if there's nothing else, that's all from me. I just want to say deep gratitude to you guys that have come online tonight, all 4 of you, and equally to everyone that's online. You know, we've had quite a few people online tonight. It is difficult. Well, it's a different time on a Sunday evening. Some people love it, some people hate it. So obviously it's something we'll be working on to see whether this is the best time to continue these conversations. But yes, deep gratitude from everyone for participating. It's been fun testing it, and have a lovely evening. I'm not sure, Kevin, if there's anything else or whether we can call it quits.
No, I think we can call it. Thanks very much, Scott. Thanks for mentioning all that. And yeah, just in terms of people who were interested in Wealth Partner, they should email me. It's Kevin@Wealth Other than that, have a great evening, everyone, and yeah, see you on the next one, possibly.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Willem, enjoy that lamb shank. I'm married, so I don't know what I get on a Sunday evening. It might be 2-minute noodles or something, you know.
I'll think of you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Keep all that.
Cheers, guys.